The glass split inches from Esther's face. She flinched as shards scattered across the marble floor, her heart slamming violently against her ribs. The tray slipped from her hands, porcelain clattering loudly in the vast bedroom. Guards outside the door barked orders, boots pounding closer, weapons cocking in panic. "Stay back," someone shouted. Esther stood frozen, breath trapped in her chest, staring at the empty space where the water glass had been moments ago. It had been sitting safely on the nightstand. She hadn't touched it, and yet it had flown. Her eyes drifted slowly to the man in the wheelchair. Before the story continues, kindly subscribe to this YouTube channel, like the video, comment, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the conclusion of this story and more intense stories like this. Young Manshik sat exactly where he always did, head tilted slightly to the side, hands resting lifelessly on the armrests, expression carved into the same blank mask she'd seen every day for 3 years. The powerful man who never moved. The man everyone said was broken beyond repair. But Esther knew what she had seen. She backed away from the nightstand, pulse roaring in her ears. Her voice cracked. "I swear I didn't knock it." The guards burst in, guns sweeping the room, eyes sharp and suspicious. One of them looked at her like she was already guilty. "What happened?" the taller one demanded. Esther swallowed hard. Her gaze flicked again to Manshik. His eyes were open, unfocused, staring at nothing. The glass just fell," she said weakly. Silence stretched, heavy and suffocating. After a tense moment, the guards lowered their weapons. One scoffed. "You're tired. Be careful next time." They left as abruptly as they had come, the door locking behind them with a loud metallic click. Esther exhaled shakily, her knees threatening to give out. She crouched to pick up the broken pieces, her hands trembling. "You scared me," she whispered without thinking, her voice barely audible. She froze. Why had she said that? For 3 years, Esther had spoken to young Manshik as if he were already gone, as if words didn't matter, as if he couldn't hear her confessions, her frustrations, her loneliness. Everyone said he was paralyzed, non-responsive, a body kept alive by machines and routine. Yet something had changed. She finished cleaning the glass, stood, and forced herself to look at him properly. His chest rose and fell steadily. His face was still, too still. "I must be imagining things," she murmured, more to herself than to him. "Long hours. That's all." She reached for his hand to reposition it, as she did every morning and evening. The instant her fingers brushed his skin, something tightened. His hand closed around hers. Not a reflex, not a twitch, a grip. Esther gasped, yanking her hand back as if burned. Her heart began to race uncontrollably, fear flooding her veins. "No," she whispered. "No, no, no." Young Manshik did not move again. The silence returned, thicker now, suffocating. Esther staggered backward until she hit the wall, pressing her palm to her mouth to stifle a scream. Tears burned her eyes. For 3 years, she had cared for this man, fed him, bathed him, talked to him when no one else would. She had told him about her childhood in Lagos, about the way people looked past her, about how invisible she felt in a world that valued sharp edges and thin smiles. Had he heard all of it? Her legs finally gave out, and she slid down the wall, sitting on the cold floor. "You're not supposed to do that," she whispered, her voice breaking. "You're not supposed to move." Manshik remained motionless. Her mind spiraled. If she told anyone what she'd seen, they would think she was lying. Or worse, they would think she was dangerous. People didn't survive long around powerful men and secrets. She wiped her tears and forced herself to stand. Whatever this was, she needed time to think. That night, Esther didn't sleep. Every sound made her jump. Every shift of shadow in the room set her nerves on edge. She kept replaying the moment in her head, the pressure of his fingers, deliberate and unmistakable. By morning, exhaustion clung to her bones. She resumed her routine as if nothing had happened. Prepared breakfast, checked his vitals, adjusted his wheelchair. But this time she watched. When she leaned close to straighten his collar, she spoke carefully. "They think you can't hear me." No reaction. Her pulse thudded. "They think you don't understand anything." Still nothing. Esther swallowed. If that's true, then this won't matter. She leaned in closer, her voice barely a breath. "I saw your hand move." For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, deliberately, young Manshik's pinky finger lifted. Just a little. Just enough. Esther's world tilted. She stumbled back, clutching the edge of the bed. "Oh my God," she breathed. His finger lowered again. His face remained expressionless, but something had changed. The air itself felt different. Charged. Alive. "You're awake," she whispered. "You've been awake this whole time." Her chest tightened painfully. Fear warred with something else. Anger, betrayal, shock. "How long?" she asked, tears spilling freely now. "How long have you been pretending?" Manshik's eyes shifted for the first time since she'd known him. They focused on her. Directly. Esther let out a strangled sob, backing away until she hit the door. "All those times," she said, her voice shaking. "I talked to you. I cried in front of you. I thought you were gone." His lips parted slightly. No sound came out. She shook her head, panic rising. "Don't speak," she whispered urgently. "The walls here listen." Footsteps echoed outside the room. Esther wiped her face quickly, forcing herself to breathe, to steady her hands. She straightened Manshik's blanket, positioning him back into stillness just as the door opened and a guard glanced inside. "Everything okay?" the guard asked. "Yes," Esther replied too quickly, then forced a smile. "Just the usual." The guard nodded and left. The door locked again. Esther turned back to young Manshik, her heart pounding. "You're not helpless," she whispered. "In whatever game you're playing. I'm in the middle of it now." His eyes held hers. And for the first time in 3 years, Esther felt seen. Esther didn't speak again until night fell. The hours dragged like a held breath. She went through the motions of the day with mechanical precision, medications, meals, vitals, while her mind raced ahead of her, circling the same terrifying truth. Young Manshik was not a silent man. He was a listening one. Every time a guard passed the door, Esther's spine stiffened. Every time a camera light blinked, she felt exposed. The house had never felt so alive, so watchful. When evening finally settled and the mansion quieted, Esther locked the door and turned toward him. Her hands trembled as she crossed the room. "You shouldn't have done that," she said quietly, stopping a few steps away. "You shouldn't have shown me." Manshik's eyes followed her. Slowly, he shifted his gaze toward the door, then back to her, as if reminding her that they were not alone. "I know," she whispered. "You're careful. You've always been careful." She let out a shaky laugh. "That's funny, isn't it? I never thought of you that way. Careful." She pulled a chair close and sat, her knees weak. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then she leaned forward. "Why?" His throat moved as he swallowed. When he finally spoke, his voice was hoarse, like a muscle unused for years. "Because you were kind." The sound of it, his voice, hit her like a physical blow. Esther pressed her hand to her chest. "You could speak this whole time?" she asked. "A little," he said. "Not always. I trained myself not to. Silence kept me alive." Her eyes burned. "And letting me talk to you like you were nothing, what was that? Part of the training?" "No," he said quickly. "That was survival too." She stood abruptly, pacing the room. "Do you know what it's like to think someone is empty? To pour everything you have into silence?" "I listened," he said. "Every word." She stopped pacing, turning on him. "That's worse." "I know." Her breath hitched. "I told you things I've never told anyone." "I know," he repeated, softer now. "You heard me cry," she said. "You heard me beg God for a life that felt like it mattered." His jaw tightened. "Yes." "Why didn't you stop me?" she demanded. "Why didn't you tell me the truth?" "Because the truth would have put a target on your back," Manshik said. "And I couldn't allow that." She laughed bitterly. "You think this doesn't already put me in danger?" He didn't answer. The silence that followed was heavy, but different now, charged with unspoken understanding. Esther dragged a hand down her face. "What are you really doing, young Manshik?" He exhaled slowly. "Ending it." "Ending what?" "Everything." She stared at him. "That's not an answer." He looked away, toward the window. "I built an empire that fed on fear. It took my wife, my son. When they died, I realized power was just another way of dying slowly." Esther's chest tightened. She hadn't known he had a family. "I couldn't walk away," he continued. "Men like me don't get to retire. So I became useless, broken, forgotten. And while everyone underestimated you," Esther said quietly, "you dismantled them." "Yes." Her mind reeled. The accounts, the delays, the missing shipments. His eyes flicked back to her, sharp. "You noticed." "I noticed things," she said. "People don't expect that." A faint, almost sad smile touched his lips. "That's why I trusted you." The word landed heavily between them. You didn't trust me, she said. You used me. No, he said firmly. I protected you. By lying to me? Yes. She turned away, gripping the back of the chair. Her shoulders shook. You don't get to decide what kind of danger I can handle. I do, he said quietly. If it keeps you alive. She spun around, eyes blazing. You don't know me. I know you more than anyone, he said. I know you hum when you're nervous. I know you read poetry out loud because silence scares you. I know you think the world sees you as disposable. Her breath caught. And I know, he added softly, that you are not. Tears spilled down her cheeks despite her effort to stop them. Stop, she whispered. Please. I won't, he said. Not anymore. A sudden alarm blared through the mansion. Both of them froze. Red lights flashed in the hallway beyond the door. Overhead speakers crackled to life. Security breach. All personnel remain in position. Esther's heart slammed into her throat. What's happening? Manshik's expression hardened. They're testing loyalty. Whose? Mine. Footsteps thundered past the door. Shouted orders followed. Esther rushed to lock the inner door, her hands shaking. They'll come here, she said. They always check on you first. He nodded. Which is why you need to listen carefully. She turned back to him. Listen to what? If they suspect me, he said, they will remove you. Her stomach dropped. Remove me how? Permanently. She stared at him, horror creeping up her spine. You said you were protecting me. I was, he said. Until tonight. A sharp knock echoed through the room. Open up, a voice demanded. Esther looked at Manshik, panic flooding her veins. What do I do? He met her gaze, steady and resolute. You lie. Another knock. Louder. Caregiver, open the door. Esther rushed to his side, repositioning him quickly, forcing his body back into stillness. She smoothed his hair, adjusted his hands, her movements frantic. You can't move, she whispered urgently. Not now? Please. His fingers twitched once, then stilled. She took a deep breath, wiped her tears, and opened the door. Two men stepped in, eyes cold and calculating. One of them studied Manshik intently. Any change? He asked. Esther shook her head. No. Same as always. The man stepped closer, staring at Manshik's face, searching for something. Esther held her breath. After a tense moment, he stepped back. Good. Keep it that way. They left, locking the door behind them. Esther collapsed against the wall, her legs giving out. She slid down, covering her mouth to muffle a sob. Manshik watched her, guilt etched across his features. I'm sorry, he said quietly. She looked up at him, eyes wet and fierce. If I'm going to survive this, she said, you don't get to keep secrets from me anymore. He nodded. Then you should know this. She waited. They're planning a coup, he said. And tonight was only the beginning. Esther closed her eyes, realizing with sick clarity that there was no turning back now. She was no longer just a caregiver. She was a witness. And witnesses rarely live long. The night did not end after the guards left. It stretched, thick and suffocating, like the mansion itself was holding its breath. Esther remained on the floor long after her legs stopped shaking, her back against the wall, eyes fixed on young Manshik. Every few seconds, she checked his hands, his chest, his face, half expecting him to vanish back into stillness like a cruel trick of exhaustion. You said they're planning a coup, she finally whispered. Against who? Against me, he replied. Against the idea that I'm finished. She let out a humorless laugh. You are finished. That's the problem. They just don't know it yet. His gaze sharpened. They know something is wrong. Money doesn't disappear without reason. Power doesn't weaken on its own. And they think I'm part of that weakness now, Esther said quietly. He didn't deny it. She pushed herself up, pacing the room. You should have sent me away when you first realized they were suspicious. I tried, he said. You refused to leave. She stopped and stared at him. You never told me why. Because I didn't want you to think it was pity. Her throat tightened. Then what was it? He hesitated. That scared her more than anything else. I didn't want to be alone, he admitted. The words landed softly, but they carried weight. Esther folded her arms around herself, trying to steady the ache spreading through her chest. You had an entire mansion, she said. An army of men. Power people kill for. And none of them spoke to me like I was human, he said. Except you. She looked away, blinking rapidly. That doesn't make this right. No, he agreed. It just makes it honest. Silence fell again, broken only by the distant hum of generators and the occasional murmur of guards outside. Esther moved closer to the window, peering through the curtains. "Can you walk?" she asked suddenly. Manshik inhaled slowly. "Not well. Not yet. I've kept my muscles alive, but damage is damage." "So the standing," she said. "That's not a miracle." "No," he said. "It's a choice. One I can only make once." Her heart clenched. "If you stand, they'll kill you." "If I don't," he replied, "they'll kill me anyway. Just slower." She turned to him, eyes blazing. "Then why am I here?" "Because when it happens," he said quietly, "I need someone who knows the truth." She shook her head. "You need a lawyer. Or the police." He gave a dry smile. "I already have them." That stopped her cold. "What?" "The evidence is already out there," he said. "Accounts, recordings, names. If anything happens to me, everything surfaces." Esther stared at him, stunned. "You planned your own death." "I planned their end," he corrected. Her legs felt weak again. She sank back into the chair. "And you never thought to tell me any of this." "I wanted you clean," he said. "Unburdened." She laughed bitterly. "You live in a fantasy, young Manshik. There is no clean in this house." Morning crept in slowly, pale light filtering through the heavy curtains. Esther didn't realize she had fallen asleep until she jerked awake to the sound of raised voices outside the door. "Caregiver," a voice called sharply. "You're needed downstairs." Her stomach dropped. Manshik's eyes met hers. "This is it." She swallowed hard. "What do I do?" "Tell the truth," he said. "Just not all of it." Downstairs, the atmosphere was cold and tense. Men stood in small clusters, whispering. When Esther entered, the room fell quiet. An older man stepped forward, his gaze sharp and assessing. "You spend a lot of time with him." Esther straightened her shoulders. "I'm his caregiver." "And yet," the man said, "you've grown attached." Her heart pounded. "That's my job." The man studied her for a long moment, then smiled thinly. "We think you've become a problem." Esther's breath caught. "I've done nothing wrong." "That's rarely the issue," he replied. "We need loyalty." Silence. "I've been silent for 3 years," Esther said, her voice trembling but firm. "Then you'll remain so," the man said. "Or you'll leave." Relief surged through her, followed immediately by dread. "Leave?" "Tonight," he continued. "You will pack your things and go." Her chest tightened painfully. "What about him?" "He won't notice," the man said dismissively. "He never does." Something in Esther snapped. She took a step forward. "He notices everything." The room went still. The man's eyes narrowed. "What did you say?" Esther realized what she'd done too late. Her pulse roared in her ears. "I meant," she began. But the man raised a hand, silencing her. "You're emotional. That happens when people forget their place." He leaned closer, his voice dropping. "You should be grateful we're letting you walk away." She nodded stiffly, forcing her face into neutrality. "I'll leave." She returned upstairs in a daze, her movements automatic. She packed her bag with shaking hands, folding clothes she barely remembered buying. Manshik watched her from his wheelchair, his expression unreadable. "They're sending me away," she said quietly. "I know," he replied. She looked at him, pain flashing across her face. "You're not even going to pretend to be surprised?" "No," he said softly. "Because this is how I keep you alive." She slammed the bag shut. "You don't get to decide that." "I do today." She turned on him, tears streaming freely now. "You used me. You hid behind me. And now you're discarding me like everyone else." "That's not true," he said, his voice breaking for the first time. "This is the hardest thing I've ever done." "Then why does it feel so easy for you?" she demanded. He clenched his jaw, eyes shining. "Because if I ask you to stay, you'll die." Silence stretched between them, heavy with everything unsaid. Esther hoisted her bag onto her shoulder. "When this is over," she said, her voice shaking, "when you've destroyed everything you built, what will you have left?" He looked at her, something raw and unguarded in his eyes. "The truth." She nodded slowly. "I hope it keeps you warm." She turned and walked out, refusing to look back. As the door closed behind her, young Manshik closed his eyes. For the first time since the accident, he allowed himself to feel the weight of what he'd lost. Esther didn't stop walking until the gates swallowed the mansion behind her. The night air hit her like a slap, cold, sharp, unforgiving. Her chest burned as if she'd been running for miles instead of merely surviving the longest walk of her life. She didn't look back. She was afraid that if she did, she'd turn around. and turning around felt like choosing death. A car waited beyond the gates. A driver she didn't recognize opened the door without a word. She got in, clutching her bag like a lifeline. As the mansion disappeared into the darkness, Esther finally let herself cry. 3 days passed. 3 long, hollow days where silence followed her everywhere. She stayed in a small hotel near the edge of the city, jumping at every knock, every passing siren. Sleep came in fragments, haunted by Manshik's voice, his eyes, the way he had watched her walk away without stopping her. On the 3rd night, her phone rang. An unknown number. Her heart stuttered before she answered. "Hello. You shouldn't be there." The voice was low, controlled, urgent. Esther's breath caught. "Who is this?" "Pack your things," the voice said. "They're moving tonight." Her blood ran cold. Moving how? Ending it. She closed her eyes, gripping the phone. "Is he alive?" "Yes. For now." Silence stretched between them. "He asked for you," the voice added. "Not to save him. To witness." Esther's hands trembled. Witness what? The end. She didn't respond immediately. Fear clawed at her chest, sharp and insistent. She had done the sensible thing. She had left. She was safe. And yet, "I'll come," she said quietly. The mansion looked different when she returned. Brighter, louder, alive in a way that felt wrong. Cars lined the driveway. Men filled the halls, their voices low and sharp with anticipation. Esther was escorted into the main chamber, her pulse pounding. At the center of the room, young Manshik sat in his wheelchair, dressed immaculately, face composed, eyes calm. He looked at her. Just her. Something loosened painfully in her chest. The room filled with voices, accusations, demands, threats. Esther barely heard them. Her eyes never left Manshik. He raised a hand. Silence fell. "I built this," he said evenly. "Every brick, every shadow." Murmurs rippled through the room. "And tonight," he continued, "I will unbuild it." Laughter broke out. Mocking. Disbelieving. He ignored it. "I know about the accounts," one man snapped. "The leaks. The delays." Manshik nodded. "Of course you do. I wanted you to. You think you can walk away from us?" Another sneered. Manshik's gaze hardened. "No. I think I can stand." The room went still. Slowly, deliberately, young Manshik pushed his hands against the armrests. Esther's breath caught painfully in her throat. He rose. Not smoothly. Not easily. His body trembled with the effort, muscles screaming in protest. For a moment, it looked like he might fall. He didn't. Gasps echoed around the room. Someone swore under their breath. Chairs scraped back. Manshik stood fully upright, swaying slightly, but unbroken. "I was never powerless," he said, his voice steady despite the strain. "I was patient." Chaos erupted. Shouts. Orders. Panic. Manshik lifted a small device in his hand. "It's already done. Authorities. Evidence. Names. If I die tonight, everything goes public." Silence crashed down like a wave. He turned his head, finding Esther in the crowd. "This was never about survival," he said softly, though everyone heard it. "It was about ending the cycle." No one moved. No one dared. By the time the authorities arrived, the empire was already ashes. 6 months later, the ocean breathed quietly against the shore. Esther sat on the porch of a small house, a book resting in her lap. The air smelled like salt and freedom. Behind her, footsteps approached, slow, careful, but steady. Young Manshik lowered himself into the chair beside her, exhaling softly. "You're reading without me." She smiled faintly. "You were late." He glanced at her, eyes warm. Still walking. She looked at him then, really looked at him. Not the silent man. Not the powerful one. Just a man learning how to live again. "Do you regret it?" she asked. He considered the question. "Every day," he said honestly. "And never." She nodded. "I'm glad you stood." "So am I," he said. "But only because you were there to see it." She reached for his hand. This time, he held hers openly. And neither of them let go. To enjoy more stories, kindly subscribe to the YouTube channel, like the video, comment, and turn on notifications so you don't miss more intense stories like this.